to another 4-H Daily Spark. My name is Elena Cross. I am one of the program coordinators for the North Carolina 4-H Horse Program, and I just wanted to welcome you back yet again to my barn. If you've been doing the 4-H Daily Sparks for a couple of weeks now, we've gone through a couple of things relating to horses, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some today. We are going to talk about some different leg wrapping techniques for horses, and if you are a horse rider or owner, you know that this is a very important thing that we do with our horses, and if it's not done correctly, it can actually injure our horses. And if you're not a horse rider or owner, I hope that this can maybe be a little educational and just interesting for you. So why do we wrap a horse's legs? So horses are athletes, and we wrap their legs for primarily 3 reasons. The first is for support. So think about if you are wrapping a joint on a human, like an ankle brace or a wrist brace or a knee brace. They're supporting that joint while you are performing an activity. We do the same thing for horses. We wrap for protection, so that could either be blunt protection from the horse's other legs while we're working, protection against the ground, or obstacles if we're working on fences or pole work, or even protection while we're hauling a horse in a horse trailer. And then the third is for therapeutic reasons. So that could be a variety of things. Maybe we are wrapping the horse's leg to prevent edema or fluid from gathering in that leg while the horse is stalled. Maybe we're wrapping it because that horse has had an injury and we need to protect that injury. And so there's different techniques that go along with each way that we're going to wrap a horse's legs. So we're going to talk about kind of those 3 primary areas today, and I'm going to show you some different techniques. And it's really important to think about wrapping a horse's leg correctly. Horses carry about 60 to 65% of their weight on their front legs. So most commonly we're wrapping the front legs. You can wrap all 4 legs for different purposes, but if we're wrapping the front legs, it's super important to do it correctly. The horse's front leg structure has no muscle tissue. It's bones, ligaments, and tendons. Tendon connects muscle to bone, and ligaments connect other bones to each other. So as you can see in the diagram, this is a very complex structure in the horse's lower leg, and there's not a lot of extra tissue or fat cover to protect it if we get something wrong. So if we apply too much pressure directly to a specific joint, then we can actually damage either that joint, or we can damage the tendons or ligaments that are around that joint, or connecting the two. So it's really important that we learn how to wrap a horse's legs correctly so that we don't cause harm to our animal, and we can actually use our leg wraps for success. So let's get started and learn about a couple of different ways we can protect our horse's legs. Okay, so today we are going to use, this is Dani California, also known as Callie. She is one of the 2-year-olds in training in my barn, so this will be good for her to practice her patience, standing still and letting us demonstrate a bunch of leg wraps. But the first thing we're going to talk about is how to wrap your horse's legs safely. So you need a safe environment, meaning there's not going to be a bunch of stuff that the horse could bump into underneath their feet, because you are going to have your attention focused on the horse's legs. So you need to make sure there's not things they can get tangled up in. A lot of times we get very complacent on a horse that we trust, and we might just ground tie them or have them tied loosely to a stall door, because when we're wrapping their legs, we're not controlling their head. So we really need to make sure our environment is safe. And then also the way that our horse is restrained is safe. We either have them appropriately tied up, or we have them in cross ties where they cannot be getting to us with their face, getting to us with their teeth. And then also, we're going to make sure that we're always working to the side of the horse. This area of the horse directly underneath them is a blind spot. So she can't see me if I'm here. So it would be very unsafe for me to be directly in front of her, directly under her. If I'm directly in front of her, if she stomped or something spooked her and she shot forward, or even if she struck at me with that leg, she can make contact with me and injure me. So when we're working with wrapping legs, we're always going to be off to the side safely. Same thing if we're working from behind, we're going to be right off to the side, making sure we have safe distance and space. Secondly, because I'm going to be down here at her legs, you're always going to want to keep one hand on the horse and let them know where you are. And then you're always going to work in a crouched position. The reason for this is if something happens and I need to move quickly, I can. If I am down and have one knee on the ground, which is very common, I see this all the time, or even two knees, which I'm not even going to demonstrate because it's not safe, I am not going to be able to get up and out of the way if something happens and I need to move for my safety. So always keep your hand on the horse and always keep your feet on the ground, not your knees. And then we're always going to make sure we never go under the horse. If you drop something, don't lean under the horse to get it. Kick it away with your foot. And then so you can go safely to the other side. So even though I trust this horse and she's giving me no reason to worry that she might injure me, horses are still large animals. They're prey animals, so if something startles them, their reaction is going to be to flee or to jump. So I need to keep myself safe. All right, girlfriend, you ready to get started? Okay. So the first category of wraps that we're going to talk about are supportive wraps. Now, supportive wraps are also protective wraps from the standpoint that they are going to protect the horse's leg from abrasion, from hard surfaces, to a degree from concussive injuries that might result from one of its other feet hitting that leg or from its leg hitting a particular object. But I thought it would be best to start with one of the most well-known and most ill-attempted leg wraps, the polo wrap. So that way if you abandon ship even after this, at least we've got some of our good principles down. So the polo wrap is a long continuous piece of like stretchy elastic fleece material, and these come in a wide variety of materials, but this is a wrap where the wrapping job is entirely dependent on the person who is doing it. So there is a lot of room for error. When the wrap is finished, it should go from the horse's knee to right above their base of their fetlock joint. It should be even and uniform in its layering, and the top Velcro of the wrap should stop right at the top of the horse's knee. So we're going to talk about a couple of techniques that we use to ensure that this wrap is done correctly, and I also have a video example of how we do not do it correctly that I see pretty frequently. So with all of my wrapping techniques, I'm going to approach the horse from the shoulder and ensure I have adequate room to work with the leg correctly and that the horse is standing square with all of their weight on that leg. I'm going to run my hand down the inside of the leg, and we always wrap from top to bottom, inside wrapping forward towards the outside. So if you'll notice, I'm wrapping that leg in a clockwise direction. The tension is uniform down the leg. It's a flat and even pull. When I get to the base of the leg, I'm going just below the fetlock, not significantly, but notice there are no wrinkles in the wrap. It's an even, steady pull, and there's an even, steady spacing between the wraps. Watching this now, I realize I was going pretty fast, and I thought I was going very slow, but you can see it's a very nice, even, uniform job when the wrap is done. You can also see that I'm not going significantly below that fetlock joint because that is not going to offer the support that I need. It's actually going to take away from that support and potentially do some detriment to that joint. So we do see that pretty frequently. The distance between your layers is going to depend totally on the height of the horse and the length of their cannon bone, as well as the length of your polo wrap. Now, one thing that can be a helpful hint if you have polo wraps that like to slip down your horse's leg is you can start with this corner piece sticking up, again, right on the inside of the leg, and then after you do one or two wraps, you can fold it down a tiny bit. Remember, we're not trying to create a pressure point on the leg, so we don't want a significant fold, but you can continue wrapping down, and when you wrap back up, it will help to keep that piece in place. So if you have an issue with polo wraps that are slipping, that could be something that helps you a little bit, but probably you're just not using uniform and even enough tension on your wrapping technique. To undo your polo wrap so that you can wrap it correctly the next time, you want to make sure that you are wrapping the way that I just demonstrated, with the Velcro still facing to the outside. If you have a horse that won't stand to let you do this, as Callie is demonstrating for us. Make sure that you're up and moving with the horse, and see how I stand for a minute before I crouch back down to keep myself safe. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to unwrap partially and then show you some incorrect wrapping techniques that we see frequently. So what we see a lot of times is uneven wrapping or loose. See how you can see gaps, wrapping 2 or 3 times around the same area of the leg, like I just did, can create pressure points. So you can see the bottom of the wrap is significantly looser now than the top of the wrap, and you can see the horse isn't very appreciative of it actually. But you can see how there's gapping at the bottom underneath the fetlock. There's actually air in the front. And when I'm looking at this wrap, I don't have uniform spacing, and I've actually created a lot of pressure along the center of the leg that can create some pressure on the deep digital flexor tendon. The next category of supportive wraps is probably one of the most popular, just for their durability and their ease and quickness of use. So these are what we generically call sports medicine boots, or supportive sports medicine wraps. And these are normally made of a heavier neoprene material, so they are very long lasting and easy to clean. You can just hose them out. But they have the same idea as a polo wrap, with a little bit more structural support and a little bit more ease of application. So this is very similar to like a knee brace or an ankle brace that offers a lot of flexibility but also stability for the horse. And again, these are very important that we apply them the correct way, because as you can see, there are 3 Velcro strips across the back of the leg and 1 that goes underneath the fetlock. If these are applied with ununiform pressure, a lot of times we see the bottom one or the middle one be applied more snugly. It's going to create an uneven pressure on your horse's leg that over time could create damage to the tendon sheath, irritation, or even injury. So let's do an example of how this wrap is correctly applied. I'm always going to begin with a clean interior of the wrap if there's debris, hair, or bedding that can cause injury. And I start at the bottom, and I am just lightly tacking that first Velcro in place, and I'm going to make sure that my wrap is going to lay flat and flush against my horse's leg. I'm going to pull each of the Velcro straps with a uniform pressure, making sure that everything is flat and flush against the horse's leg and there's not any folding, especially where that first seam is. Then, after I do my 3 side ones, I'm going to come back around and do my bottom fetlock support with a uniform pressure so that everything is flat and tight to the horse's leg. Our final category of supportive wrap, which can also be used as a protective wrap or a therapeutic wrap, is going to be the classical standing wrap. And the standing wrap is a cushioned pillow wrap that is underneath either a polo wrap or, more correctly, would be a standing wrap bandage, which is a thinner, stretchier, wider bandage that is very similar to a polo wrap, but mine were actually in the wash and I did not have them clean for this demonstration, so I used a polo wrap. With a polo wrap, it's a little harder to get a standing wrap exactly how you want it, so that's why you see a little bit of lack of uniformity with some of the wrapping. But the reason that you might use this wrap would be if your horse is in a stall and tends to stock up or collect some fluid in their legs. This can help alleviate some of that. This can also protect a bandage that might be over an open wound. You can use these when you are shipping your horse. They generally are not used for extensive exercise. If you have a very well applied wrap that's tight, you might be able to use it for some light, work at the horse show just to get a little bit of the lymph moving through your horse's legs. But this is another very useful wrap that can definitely be detrimental, maybe even cause a bowed tendon if it is put on incorrectly. So let's look at the correct way to apply this wrap. Again, we are starting with a clean wrap, and we are going to wrap from the inside of the leg to the outside, from the front to the back. And I want to make sure that everything is laying nice and flat and my horse has full weight on their leg. This is more of an issue with the back legs. I'm going to pull that bandage uniform and very snug. This bandage is actually a little too big for this baby horse's leg. I want it to be between the knee and the fetlock. This is not going to drop down and cover the bulb of my horse's heels. If you're going to use this for transport, you can always put bell boots on your horse. But I am going to tuck the end of my pullover standing wrap underneath the gap and pull again tightly and snugly inside to outside, front to back, to create a uniform pass over that leg. And a puller wrap is a little more difficult to do this with, and this wrap was a little too big for this horse. So this would be a wrap I would want to redo a little bit. It wouldn't be detrimental, but it's not the best work. And as you can see, the top is a little bit tighter than the bottom. So if this seems a bit daunting, there are wraps that exist that kind of mix the two of these together that are much easier and safer to apply if you're unsure of your wrapping technique. This particular wrap is a therapeutic wrap that is a ceramic wrap. It's designed to reflect the horse's infrared heat back into their body to help increase blood flow, to help either prevent injury or help with injury recovery. But the black portion of the wrap is a removable pillow that is washable, and then the outside is a similar product to the sports medicine wrap that we saw earlier. So this wrap can be applied for a lot of the same purposes as the standing wrap. It's just much quicker to apply and much easier to apply to make sure that you're doing it correctly. It's going to be very similar to the sports medicine wrap. The downfall to these is they are a bit more expensive, but in my experience they've held up very well, and they're a great investment if you're not sure of your wrapping abilities with the standing wrap, because you absolutely can cause problems in boa tendon if you're not wrapping your horse correctly. So this wrap is going to be applied similarly to the sports medicine wrap. We're going to start with a clean base. And this time you don't have to start from the inside of the leg to the outside, but you are still going to pull from front to back. So you want your elastic tabs to go from the front to the back. I like to start with the middle tab for uniform pressure, then I'll readjust it and finish with my fetlock tab, just like I did with the sports medicine boot. Then a nice uniform wrapping job. So moving on to our leg wraps that are purely protective and do not offer any support, this is one of the most common combinations that you see across all disciplines, the good old splint boot and bell boot combination. The bell boot is the dirtier round wrap that's on the bottom of the horse's coronet band, and what this does is it protects the back of the horse's bulbs of the feet from getting stepped on by the rear feet, which is what's called forging. And it also can help prevent horses from pulling shoes if they have a tendency to do that, or a therapeutic shoe on. These are usually made of rubber and are soft at the top so that they do not rub or chafe the horse's sensitive skin at the back of the pastern. And the boot that is on top is a splint boot. And splint boots come in several varieties. I'm going to show you a few, but the best way to think of it is like a shin guard for soccer. They don't offer any supportive support, but they do offer protection from concussions. So that could be from another one of the horse's legs, from an object such as a fence they're trying to jump, or poles they're working on across the ground, and they can provide a lot of protection for the horse in everyday activities. So the bell boot simply goes on around the bottom of the horse's fetlock, and the goal is to protect the back part of the bulbs of the heel and the bottom part of the horseshoe. The split boot is going to have a specific right leg and left leg. You always want the fatter portion of the protective part to be down over the fetlock, and you are always going to pull your tabs from front to back. But these are relatively easy boots to put on correctly. Here we have another variation of this boot. So this is simply a boot that has a rear and side protection, and it has a little bit more stability with its straps, but it's going to serve the same purpose. This boot is going to be applied in the same manner. The straps are going to go from front to back, but there's a third strap that is going to cover and secure those two straps. But these are very popular because they are quick to put on and easy to do so correctly. On the hind feet, we have what are called galloping boots, and you can tell this is a galloping boot because the bell is a little bit wider on that back foot to prevent brushing, but it's the same general idea. And I apologize for this video, I thought you could see better. I was self-filming on a tripod, but the idea is the same. You're going to pull from front to back, making sure that it is protecting the inner fetlock of your horse. Quick and easy. So one thing I want to touch on with splint boots is it's very common to see these ones that have 3 straps, and the correct way to put these on is so that the Velcro straps are pointing towards the back of the horse's leg. This picture shows an incorrect application where you can actually be pulling on the tendons from the wrong direction and potentially cause injury. The final boot that we're going to cover today is what we call the shipping boot. And the shipping boot is designed for when horses are hauled in horse trailers to protect their legs from injury from concussion, stepping on and off the trailer, etc. So these boots are designed to be taller, breathable, cover the inside of the horse's knees and hocks, and all the way down to the ground. So you can see there's a leather piece that goes around the back. They're very easy to put on. You want them to be snug so they don't fall off. So a front wrap, I always do my middle strap first to secure my boot, and you want to get these nice and snug so they don't fall off your horse's leg while you are shipping. And you want them to come all the way down to the bottom of the bolts of the horse's heels. A rear leg wrap is going to be shaped a little different to protect the hock, so it's going to go quite a bit higher than the other wraps. And you want to be especially careful when applying this wrap for the first time to a horse. It can startle some horses and they might kick out, or if they move their leg and feel it, they might have an exaggerated motion, but they're very easy to get on. Well, thank you for joining me today to talk about leg wraps and leg wrapping techniques. I hope you have, if you're a horse person, learned something that you can apply at home and practice. And if you're not a horse person, I hope that you found some interesting tidbits that maybe you can use on a trivia night or when you're talking to your horse person friends. So I hope that everybody has a wonderful rest of your day and your week, and just stay safe.